I'm SP from Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a show about the general Marvel comic universe, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other hilarious and fun geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Each week, we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven, Chris, and SP.
Welcome to an all-new episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I am Steven John Drew, and with me is the regular crew. That's right, regular Chris Farrell is here.
I took my fiber this morning, so that's true.
And also, regular Stargate Pioneer is here, too.
Well, it's good that you differentiate regular Stargate Pioneer from the Rebel, because if the Rebel was here, you know, that'd be a whole other show. And I don't think we're ready for that yet this year.
Is that rated R or NC-17?
I don't know if last time was R or NC-17. It could have been X.
Is X going to give it to you?
The Rebel would.
We've got a little bit of a shorter show today. It's an all-new show, but still looking forward to it nonetheless. But before we get to that, I think that we should just follow up to last week's episode. And during the show, we talked a little bit, we did a whole segment about hardware and looking back at the history of hardware. I asked all sorts of questions about NVIDIA and ATI and things like that. And after the show, a lot of people commented about how it seemed highly, highly unfair that I would ask them all about that, because I clearly just loved ATI and there was a lot of ATI questions. And I just want to follow up and say, yeah, it was unfair. And I stand by it.
It's your show, man. You're going to do with what you want.
I can't wait. I can't wait till one of us runs Geek Wars next.
Yeah, I think the last time was when you asked us Orville trivia. And by the way, Orville's not coming back.
I've got my doubts as well, but we'll talk about that at a later date.
Is it not coming back just because they haven't been able to film, or are they not coming back because there is cast issues?
The rumor is actually that Seth MacFarlane's done with it.
Seth MacFarlane wants to be written out after this season, is what I had read. And he wants to kill off his character at the end of season 3 because he doesn't really want to be doing comedy right now. He's got a deal with NBC to do more dramatic properties, show run, and develop some shows like that. And he's just kind of ready to get out of comedy.
So he finally got the thing that he's wanted his entire life. And now he just wants to back out of. I am so glad I never started officially watching the show.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good show, but it's just a matter of, I sort of get it. He had new opportunities come up, and those new opportunities are on broadcast television, not on a show that magically got moved to Hulu after it had been on broadcast television and pulled decent ratings. So that would probably reduce some of my motivation too. Where I'd be like, wait a second, I had prime spot on prime time. Now all of a sudden I'm pushed off till God knows when and I'm on Hulu? What?
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what happens with it. Nonetheless, I have made my issues with the Orville known, especially season 2. And I guess we'll just see what happens and say goodbye. Beautiful sets, though. Let's go ahead and move on to the news. So we had a couple of, news events, press events, whatever you want to call them, over the last couple of weeks. And they were from Amazon and Google. I thought we'd take the opportunity here to talk about both of those. If you didn't know that, Amazon makes products and Google makes products. And every year they like to do an event where they talk about new products. And both of them had that. Now, I know that several of us watched firsthand as it was streamed the Google event last week. And the week before, none of us watched the Amazon one because for some stupid reason, they still decided to make it exclusive to PR people. Like it was ridiculous. They're doing a whole new event. They're basically doing what everybody's had to do, which is not doing events in public. And they streamed the event, yet they still only did it to like news organizations. They didn't open it up to the public. That was dumb.
Wait a minute. You said PR, so that's Puerto Ricans?
Sure. Yeah, I don't
Personal
know.
records, actually.
Yeah. I didn't mean that. I meant public relations, and I don't know why I said PR. I meant like news organizations. Media. That was the word I was looking for. Media folk. There we go.
We're
That,
media. Why didn't we get a link?
that's
Yeah.
true. That's
What
true.
the hell, Bezos?
I know. Because they don't recognize podcasting as media.
Oh, wait a
Shots
minute.
fired.
Have you not put the show on Amazon Podcasts because of their terms of service, which used to say that you can't say anything disparaging about Amazon or its affiliates?
Yes, that's exactly why.
Okay.
So anyways, there's a couple events over the last couple of weeks, and I thought we should talk briefly about them because there's lots of products that were announced that we talk about regularly on here. And I'll just go through and I'll run through these products, and then we can see where the conversation goes based off what we want to talk about. I've got most of them. There's probably a couple I did leave out, but that's just because I'm a terrible individual. So let's start with the first one, which was the Amazon event. Amazon announced the big kind of discussion point was Amazon Luna, which is a new cloud gaming of $6 per month. Yes, they saw how well it went for Google and decided to get involved. They also announced, of course, going with that, a Luna controller for $50. It is a game controller that's meant to couple with the cloud controller. They announced a couple new Echoes. Yes, there is a Echo 4th gen. That's the regular size, not the Plus, not the mini one. Echo 4th gen at $100, coming about October 22nd. And in that same time frame, there'll also be a Echo Dot 4th gen as well for $50 American. Now, here's the thing with both of those. They both have a whole new look to them. They're an orb. That's what it is. They're a sphere design now, as opposed to the ones that we've seen before, which was more of a cylinder with the full size and then a puck with the small dot. So both of these are orb shaped. Allegedly, this is because this is going to allow them to have a lot better sound, but better speaker placement and things like that. That's allegedly the big win there. Also, new Echo Dots, $60 as well. Also orb shaped, but it's got a fun character on there. Bunch of new Fire TVs. I don't know that there's really anything like feature, like design-wise, that's brand new with these Fire TVs. They're mostly just refreshes with, I think, some remote changes. But on the other side of the house, in the networking, I know this is what several people, including you two, were very excited about, was that there is a announcement of a new Eero. Yep, they're getting into the Wi-Fi 6, and there is new Wi-Fi 6 compatible Eeros being announced. And lastly, in the Ring side of the house, they have a couple of Ring products that turn some heads. The first is a Ring car alarm. Yes, this is going to go into the, whatever it is, OBD2 port. You know that port that's under your dash that they can pull maintenance information from, codes from? It's going to plug into that, and that's how the car alarm feature is going to mainly operate. But I think there's also something that goes on the mirror. Anyways, new car alarm system. But the other one was in your house, a Ring drone. You're probably saying, Steven, you're making that up. I know. You're probably saying that. No, that's not true. The Ring drone is actually a little thing that is supposed to sit in a base and find its way around your house to investigate sounds. We'll come back to that.
They also have a Ring dash cam coming too.
Oh,
in your
that's
car.
what I was thinking of, the Ring dash cam. Thank you. On the other side of things, Google, I'll quickly run through those and then we'll just talk about all of them together as we would like. The Google, they announced the Pixel 4a and the 4a 5G and the 5. Nothing new there. It's all the specs that were leaked. There's nothing new there. They also did a refresh similar to Amazon, but with their just main Google Nest audio device. It used to be Google Home. The Nest audio device now has a new design as well. They did announce the Chromecast with Android TV that we talked about a little while ago that was rumored. Yes, it is coming out. It's got a little remote on it, and it will have Android TV.
Out.
It did come out. That's true.
September 30th, it was officially out.
That's true. And also, they did continue to mention Duo in their announcement, so there's some confusion there. We were talking about the confusion last week. Yes, Duo is still being mentioned, but they have made Google Assistant calling enhancements, including rolling out the Hold For Me feature, which has been long rumored, where you will be able to essentially ignore the hold music, which is nice. So you can get put on hold, and then you can basically pick and choose what you're listening to when you're on hold, and not have to listen to the person that you're talking to's crappy hold music, and it'll tell you when you're taking off hold. So it sounds like it's another those wonderful call features that Google's been working out with the Assistant. And really, that was about it out of the event. And it was a very short event, like half-hour event was, I think, their limit. That looked to me, and this was my big takeaway, by the way, with the Google event, it looked like a bunch of commercials slapped together. That's what it looked like. It was terrible.
That's exactly what it was, because each individual social media account, like the Pixel one and then the Google Home one, all just tweeted their portion of the video out.
Ridiculous. It was a terrible event. Let's just go through this, open this up. Out of this bunch of hardware announcements from Google and Amazon over the last couple of weeks, where do we want to start? Maybe start with Amazon. Let's go to what you really liked, the Eero. Let's start there, and let's start with SP.
Yeah, so I just equipped my house with an Eero, I guess, Wi-Fi 5 system now, and I really enjoy it. And I think it's a true mesh system that would be applicable to a lot of places. Now, my daughter is in an apartment. She's going to be moving to a house next year. So an Eero 6 system would, I think, work great there. And it costs a lot. That's the downside to the Eero system. It costs a bundle. It's going to be $5.99 for a 3-pack. And my application at the lake would require at least 6 of them, which is 2 $600 packs. So it's $1,200 to fit out the lake. But then we wouldn't have to run any Cat 5 cable through the different buildings. We would just be able to connect over Eero and over the Wi-Fi, and then we would actually be able to run some security systems in the outbuildings that might not necessarily have them right now. So that's pretty cool. I am looking forward to upgrading my system to the 6s eventually, but like I said, the price is a bit high. I think I got mine on sale for $3.99. I'm pretty sure the 2 packs were at $3.99 when I got them on sale earlier this year, and it was just before the pandemic hit. So it was before the availability went away, and there was a need for a lot of people to work from home and try to upgrade their systems. And I did try to get a hold of it for my daughter's college dorm room, and unfortunately I couldn't. So I had to go with an Asus Mini AX system. So I'm looking forward to this when it comes out, both for home and other applications that I have. It's just a lot of money. That's my one takeaway from the Eero system. Very, very, very expensive.
Now, directly, Chris and I were chatting a little bit about this, and you brought up a really good point, because I was thinking to myself, like, there's not a lot of Wi-Fi 6 right now, but it's good for future-proofing. But you brought up an interesting thought, which is that the Wi-Fi 6 could be beneficial, like probably primarily beneficial to start as the backhaul to the mesh network, which I think is a really good point, because when Wi-Fi 5 came out, everybody was like, oh, everybody rejoice. I'm no longer crowded Wi-Fi with all of my neighbors. And now here we are with Wi-Fi 5 completely crowded on all of the main bands. And there are, okay, DFS, yes, I'll acknowledge it right now. There's problems with DFS with compatibility and other issues, but there is essentially a crowded network again. So even if this buys you a couple years of a strong wireless backhaul, that is a really beneficial feature to have. Even if your devices aren't using Wi-Fi 6, that means that the different mesh points in your house are going to be talking through an essentially clear communication channel, which is definitely a potential problem with existing mesh Wi-Fi. If you have, it doesn't matter if you have a mesh point, an access point in every single room, if they are all talking to each other through a crowded Wi-Fi band, it's going to slow down your Wi-Fi signal, because they're all talking to each other very crowded, and it's going to slow down. But if you've replaced that backhaul with 6, and it's not crowded, then that is one less challenge that you have to overcome. So I thought that was a really good point, Chris.
Couple things to keep in mind also, and they've already mentioned this on the Eero subreddit where one of the lead developers comes and talks, is Eero 6 and Eero 5 hardware is compatible. They will all communicate and talk to each other as you want. So in theory, you could get, say, just 2 Eero 6 devices that would cover a haul that you're most concerned about, and it'll still work with the rest of your hardware. The other thing to keep in mind in regards to how an Eero mesh system works, I've had one for a year and a half, almost 2 years now, is it's kind of just set it and forget. And the way it works is they're constantly kind of looking in the background to see all the other networks around you and then making adjustments and tweaking the channels you're on and things like that to minimize the impact of your neighbors around you. So I live in a townhouse community. Last time I pulled up the Wi-Fi screen to see how many networks were around me, there was probably 12 to 14 networks that were selectable around me. I'm still not having any issues staying connected on my Eero mesh network, any throughput issues, anything like that. So it's kind of magic, the secret sauce that is their true mesh that they use. I'm a very happy customer of Eeros.
Well, I look forward to seeing what happens here because Wi-Fi 6 is new. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen with Wi-Fi 6 still, but I'm glad to see them adopt it soon. I think that from a spec perspective, I know Suncast and I have had a conversation about this because he agrees with me. From a spec perspective, the non-Wi-Fi 6 version of Eero does fall short of several other mesh networks. There are several others that have better specs, better hardware, and just overall on paper serve better. But the thing is, like you said, there's some benefits to the Eero mesh, but their secret sauce is that true mesh that they have that's proprietary to them that kind of dictates how a mesh network works. And it works better than Google Wi-Fi did when I had one of those. I'll say that much. Yeah, Google Wi-Fi, don't get me started on the terribleness that is that.
I'll drink to that.
However, some people look at it and they look at raw numbers and they go, okay, well, it's faster radio in the another company. I won't say a company's name, and so I'll go with that. But Eero has done a really good job, like even before Amazon owned them, of continuing to evolve. And so I like to see that they have done this because I think that Eero is a product that a lot of people should be looking at because it's simple to hook up. The results seem to be good when people are using them overall. It's a little like, truthfully, I think it's a little overpriced in some ways. But the thing is, it's not like it's still within reach for a lot of homes as an affordable manner for someone who is looking for coverage everywhere, right? So I think that it's a good balance overall. And so I'm glad to see them to be an early adopter of Wi-Fi 6 for sure.
I'm just happy that they did not indulge what a lot of people were concerned that they would do, which is they're owned by Amazon now. This is an acquisition that's like 2 years old at this point in time. They've made a point in the subreddit of saying Amazon pretty much just leaves them alone and gives them funding and gives them better reach. They haven't changed their privacy policy, anything like that. But we saw with the last round of Google Wi-Fi that they made one that had Google Assistant built into it. They did not make an Eero device with Amazon Voice Services built into it, and I applaud them for that because there are a lot of folks that had their concerns when Eero was acquired by Amazon, that would be Amazon's trying to find a way to get involved in all of my Wi-Fi traffic and things like that. And by all accounts, they've continued to be relatively hands-off at this point, and they did not slap the Amazon Voice Services tools into Eero. So, bravo.
Just to close this discussion off, I use the Eero Pro system that I have 6 Pros right now of the Eero 5, and I would continue using the Pro system. There is also the smaller hub as well. So you don't necessarily have to go full bore in at the $600 for 3 of them. That is for the 3-pack of Eero Pros in the 6. So I just wanted to say that. There's a lot more to discuss though, Stephen.
And also one thing to keep in mind is we've got Prime Day coming up in like 2 weeks at this point in time.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked to see a lot of the current gen Eero hardware, what's left of it, going for a pretty good sale as they get ready to start selling the 6 stuff. I believe November is when that stuff officially ships. So look for some pretty sweet sales potentially. I mean, they've been pretty sweet in the past. That's how I got mine, was on Prime Day. So yeah, just stay tuned.
So is there anything else in the Amazon update that you want to talk about? I personally, with the look.
One device we forgot, the new Echo Show 10, just because it's interesting. This is the one that they're going to have Netflix in it now, which they didn't have before. So you'll be able to watch Netflix on your Amazon devices. And B, it is designed so that it has a camera and a screen that follows you as you're doing things. So say, for instance, you have it in your kitchen, it can follow you as you move from counter to counter while you're cooking. It's both creepy and cool at the same time, because if you really are having a video chat with someone, it means you're always looking at the same point. And theoretically, it means your Netflix movie could follow you around. So you're not always like, what I just missed? Oh, crap.
I think it's cool. I have to give credit where credit's due. The Facebook portal did a really good job of following the person, but the screen was still fixed. So that was one of the problems, right? Was it doesn't matter. You walk over to the left and you're off angle and it's kind of hard to see. So I like that the whole thing moves. I think that this is a good evolution to that whole follow me idea.
Yeah, I'm not getting one, but I think it's interesting.
One thing that I am interested in all of these new Echo devices, whether it's the Show or the Dots, is the speakers. How do the speakers compare to the previous version? And honestly, you really just don't know that until you get it in the house. Like the Show 10, the new Show 10, it's a different fit form. So I'm wondering if the speakers are going to take a little bit of a hit because you have less room for the speakers in how it's actually constructed.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. Apparently that's why the Echoes are an orb now, is because they're supposed to get better. We saw this evolution along the way, that the Dot, the puck size, the 3rd gen blew the 2nd gen out of the water, right? Like the 3rd gen sounded quite reasonable. And then I've got an Echo Show 8 and an Echo Show 5. I started using the 5 in my office instead of the Dot because it sounded so much better than even the 3rd gen Dot. And then I got the 8, and the 8 blew the 5 out of the water. Like from a desk space perspective, I would rather have the 5. It fits better. But the thing is, the 8 just sounds so much better, and I play a lot of music through it. So I hope this evolution continues to happen. I do have the same concerns with you, though, about the 10 form factor being that without it looking like it's got a lot of room for speaker.
You know, my other concern is the niceness of the Dots was that you could kind of sneak them in little places because they didn't take up a bunch of space. The new spherical Dot takes up more space now.
I agree. I have concerns on that.
Especially for folks like myself that in my garage, I have one of those 3D printed brackets that you can basically wrap, that holds your Echo vertical like this and then wraps up around the power cord and plugs in so it can hug a wall. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work as well because the new Dot's much taller.
And that's the other thing too, is even on the Echo Regular, I've got an Echo Plus in my living room shoved behind my TV. Sounds great. Fantastic. Because my TV is wall mounted. And then, sorry, it's wall mounted above a, I can't think of the name. Mantle.
Fireplace,
Thank you.
mantle.
So the Echo Dot is right behind the TV and it just kind of tucks it, or it's not the Dot, sorry, the Echo Plus is right behind the TV, tucks in there, no problem. I'll never be able to replace that with an Echo Regular because the TV would be in the way. It won't work. I'd have to put it off to the side. So I agree. I'm not hating them yet because I think that objectively they might be visually more appealing for some, but I also think functionally they're going to be worse. So I'm still on the fence on that.
It doesn't fit some of my use cases for those, which is to slip it in a corner or put it on a desk so it's not really that noticeable.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about the Ring car cam, which is basically a dashboard cam. I like that Ring is venturing into this era. I needed to buy some new car cams anyway, so I'll look into this. I don't know if I'll necessarily want a subscription for this, and it does depend on Wi-Fi, and if your phone's not around, then it's not going to have Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. I don't know. The other thing that I wanted to point out is just HD. It's not 4K. In my experience with HD car cams, I think it's good. It's better than nothing, but I think you really need 4K to really ascertain what's going on around you in the event of an accident or something like that.
Fair enough. On the Amazon note, the only last thing that I want to mention right now is the drone for the house. I look forward to seeing the practicality of this because it's it's not like a toy drone. It's a thing that's supposed to fly through your house. I got cats that would love to jump off of a cat tree as it's flying around. I also don't trust that it's going to be able to navigate through when a Roomba hits walls and things like that. So Oh, by the way, leave your window open. And as a drone pilot, I will tell you that winds can be a problem. So, especially, I know,
indoor drones, especially.
And those are
when you're
exactly, but the outdoor ones are GPS enhanced. I call question mark. I'm not going to say BS. I call extreme question mark on the functionality of this.
You don't have central heat in your house, right?
No, good point.
So you have central air in your house like I do. Chris, I think you have central forced air too with your house. That's going to mess it up. And that's the problem I have when we were first learning how to fly drones. When was that? Like 3 years ago
Something
now,
like that.
Stephen?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the issue. We were like, okay, we're going to fly in the house to be safe. We're just going to learn how to do this. And we both found it was difficult to control the drones because of the air currents inside the house. And then when you throw in the actual forced air, that air is moving around, or ceiling fans or something like that, I do question how good this is going to be for a small drone to be able to control it. And if it's a big drone, then it's creating its own aerodynamics and its own airflow and fluid dynamics, really. And yeah, I question. It's a neat idea. I like it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. And for those listeners that didn't see what I just did, I took out my little Nerf gun and I was shooting. So yeah, if it was flying around, it would get Nerf shot. That's for sure in my house.
On the Google front, the only things that I want to quickly just touch on here is number one, I pre-ordered a Chromecast with Android TV because I have a Fire Stick Basic, which I've made it clear I don't like the Fire Stick Basic. It's slow. I have problems with it. I needed to replace it anyways. So I've pre-ordered one of those. Pixel 5, cool, neat features. Price actually came in lower in Canada than I anticipated. And I think if you do a little exchange calculation, I think you might find Canada benefits a little bit with their pricing. But still, actually, when all said and done, I got to see reviews, but when all said and done, I'm comfortable with my 4A purchase. There isn't anything that really just like dragged me wanting to get it. Yes, like I said, it did come in cheaper than I thought, but it not so much so that I'm kicking myself over the 4A purchase. Canada and US, believe it or not getting the first release dates. No, we're not. If people who tried to pre-order right when it was announced, they had said in the announcement it was going to be October 15th. People who tried to pre-order in US quickly found out that it was not shipping on that day. There are articles about why, but that's the way it's looking for US and Canada. We are not one of the countries that were listed as October 15th. As well, the last thing that I want to mention is that the Nest Audio design changed as well. Same concern I got over Google or over Amazon. I think that functionally isn't a concern because it's not really that much wider than it was. But I think visually it's worse than the previous version. And I think that, you know, with the Amazon Echoes, you have the offset. Okay, it's going to be bigger, but it looks like it might be prettier. Here, I feel like, okay, the form factor is the same, but it's uglier. So I don't know. I'm again, jury's out on how I feel about the new design. Chris, why don't you go first here with the Google event?
Everything leaked. Everything was pretty much what I expected when it leaked out. So I guess that's interesting. I will say I am in the market to upgrade because this is a Pixel 2 XL. It is end of life as of October, stops receiving security updates. So the timing is almost perfect to upgrade. That being said, I am not going to upgrade to a new Pixel until sometime after Black Friday because it never fails. Everyone who's an early adopter then goes, oh crap, here's Google's Black Friday sale. Oh crap, it's really good. So I'm going to put that off. And what I will say right now is I have been researching potentially when I swap over to that, swapping over to using Google Fi for my cellular service because that's the service that's on US Cellular, Sprint, T-Mobile, and wow, there's another company I'm forgetting all of a sudden, but it's got like 4 different cell companies that basically comprise its service. And in my area now, it's full 4G coverage now. So I'm considering doing that. And I know in the past, they have done Pixel deals that then give you $250 bill credits on Google Fi, which would be a lot right now, considering I'm using no data. So that is intriguing to me. We'll see what happens around Black Friday timeframe.
Anything that stands out for you there, SP? I know you're probably saying, okay, I'm going to get rid of all of my Amazon voice services and go only to the Nest Audio.
Well, I have a general comment, not just for Google, but for all these companies that had announcements in September, which include Amazon, which we just talked about, but also extend to like Microsoft and Sony. And I think Hewlett Packard, HP, they had one, and maybe even Dell. I can't remember how many events that were in September, but a lot of companies had an event in September. And there was one particular device that I did not see introduced in any of them, which was a smart robot vacuum.
Oh,
I want a smart robot vacuum. And I think like the Shark might be the best one right now, but I am looking forward to buying one for this after seeing them. So we have a couple of older Shark Ions at the lake, and they're great. I mean, I didn't realize they docked themselves after a certain amount of time. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So yeah, I want some now, and I'm disappointed that we did not get a smart one. Like, I want one with Amazon integrated into it so I can talk to it as it's running around. I want to name it. I want to talk to it. Like, I feel like we're at that point.
you know what? You bring up a good point. Like, I've looked into them, not extensively. Now, one of the things I credit where credit's due, my understanding is that Roomba was really ahead of its time, that for pretty much almost their entire existence, they've had room mapping, as opposed to these cheaper robot vacuums, which just basically go around crashing into things. Apparently, Roombas early on had that like learning technology. But you're right. So many other areas have evolved with like AI and, smart devices and things like that. Yes, a lot of these vacuums have apps now. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, you can give them a name or whatever. But the thing is, they haven't done much more beyond just a app control. Like, that's about it. So I think you can, some of them go in and put rooms, but I think there is a lot of opportunity there for a huge leap on this here. So I'm very, very interested to see when that leap happens.
Think of this, Stephen. The DJI drones have just been phenomenal, right? They have cameras that are or sensors that are all over it. Think of that integrated into this little robot vacuum. And if you want to have fun or whatever, you can say, okay, I don't know what to call it. Okay, Vacuum X, go after the dog or go after the cat or something like that. And just see it, try to play with the dog or the cat or whatever. And like, if you're away at work, you could make it do certain things. I mean, you're getting beyond vacuums, but we're at that point where there could be a ton integrated into these things. And I was disappointed that I didn't see any of that in any of these announcements this September.
And if you're worried about home defense, duct tape a knife to the top of your automated vacuum cleaner and just take out any invader's Achilles tendon. They're not going anywhere.
Perfect. You know what else, by the way, I didn't see announced? New Apple TV. Let's move on to the next news point here, which is, as I realized for the video viewer, I forgot to update the sidebar. Sorry about that. Let's go to See Ya Cineworld.
Yes, that's my news story. This news just came out late last week. Cineworld, which if you're in the United States might not be as knowing what that company is, but they are the owner of the largest chain of theaters in the United Kingdom and the second largest in the United States. That would be Regal Cinemas. They are reportedly going to be closing all of their theaters next week, according to Variety, the Sunday Times, and a variety of other media sources. Variety has reported that 543 theaters in the United States will be closed, which account for the chain's 7,000 plus screens in the region. The Sunday Times also reports it will close all 128 theaters in the UK and Ireland as well. So why did they finally make this decision to close permanently? Remember, back in March, most movie theater chains closed for a while. Some of them started gradually reopening. You could be like, hey, let's go watch Empire Strikes Back or other older movies out there. Well, it was announced last week that the next Bond movie, No Time to Die, the 25th in the series, was pushed back to April 2021. It was the last of the major tentpole releases slated to come out this year. So they're throwing in the towel and realizing there's not a ton of people that are going to want to come in to watch a bunch of old movies they've already seen before, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So that sort of makes sense, but here's where it gets a little shady and dicier. The news comes as a giant shock to all of Cineworld's employees, whose action group stated on Twitter there was no consultation with staff whatsoever. How did they learn that they were going to be out of a job? when the Sunday Times published that their 5,500 jobs were now in jeopardy because Cineworld was closing things down. So poor job communicating that out to your employees. I believe it's the same case for the Regal employees here in the United States. So let's go into a little background of why they might be closing down. We sort of mentioned no tentpole films, and they already lost $1.6 billion in the first half of 2020 because we were deep in the coronavirus pandemic, probably are still deep in it here, at least in the United States, and nobody was wanting to go to the movie theater. We did see some folks go out and see Tenet when it was in theaters. A lot of people were hoping that would be the thing to save the cinema. It wasn't, because a lot of people went, yeah, I don't want to risk getting COVID-19 to go see Tenet. And you know what? As much as I want to see James Bond, I don't want to risk COVID-19 going to see James Bond or Black Widow or any of these other movies that were supposed to be out already that have been delayed. So this sucks. I feel terrible for the employees. I feel terrible in part because they're out of a job, and also in part because their company did a bad job of telling them that this was happening. But at the same time, I understand from a consumer perspective why folks may not want to go to the movie theater right now, because we don't want to take that risk. The real question is, as the coronavirus pandemic continues to go out further and further along, and we assume that it will until there's a viable vaccine, what does this mean for the future of movie theaters? Say it's a year from now, we finally have the vaccine at a state where enough people have had it, we can feel relatively safe. Are these all going to reopen? I don't know. I think we might be about to see a shift in the model of how big tentpole releases are handled.
Yeah, here's the thing that occurred to me when I was hearing about this was, who remembers the MP3 and the music industry handling of that, right? Like, I think that it has the potential to change a lot of people's needs or desires to see movies in theaters, because right now, like, a lot of people who were going to see movies were obviously forced to not see them anymore because the theaters were closed. But eventually it becomes a thing of like, now my priorities have shifted. I've gone so long without it. Sure, I'd like to see a movie, but I don't feel that need anymore. So people were probably going habitually because that's just what they were used to, and that's what they were comfortable with. And we've seen a lot of shifts elsewhere, even with, like, retail centers being forced to adopt better online pickups and orders and things like that, right? It really forced the market in other areas to adapt. And we might see the same sort of thing here. We might all eventually one day be comfortable going out, or we could end up being in the situation where we go, you know what? It really taught me how gross it is sitting in a theater full of other people, and that just doesn't seem like something I want to do anymore. Or it could just be a matter of, I don't want to go and pay all of this money. I went 2 years without seeing a movie in the theater. I can wait 6 months for a home release, right? Like, the people might shift here, and if that's the case, the movie industry is going to have to figure out whether they want to be the recording industry.
So I'm not sure how much it's actually going to shift in the long term, but because here's the thing. When Black Widow comes out, or Bond, something that a big tentpole franchise that a lot of people want to go and see, you know what comes into play then? FOMO. People don't want to miss out on the event. They want to be able to talk about it with their friends. And that's when it becomes a harder decision, especially if it's safe then, to be like, well, I'm going to wait 6 months until I can talk about Black Widow with my friends and get spoiled by everyone in the interim, because there is no such thing as control and spoilers anymore after a movie comes out. So I think you're right to an extent. I think that it's the big tentpole films that are going to force this to still exist in some capacity. And then you start to see some of the smaller films potentially look at like direct digital distribution and only putting it out in a theater just so they can be nominated for an Academy Award kind of thing. The Netflix model right now of what they do with a lot of their movies.
I will slightly disagree with you, Chris, and I don't want to get too far off the sidetrack. That's spoil it. You can't control spoilers. You kind of can't. I think the Russo brothers with the last two major Avengers movies, I think they controlled it for a couple weeks. Yes, there were spoilers out there, but they were heavily caveated. And yeah, by mistake you could, but for the most part, there was a lot of people that abided by that 2-week embargo time, which was great. Now, not every movie is like that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of the exception to the rule. Like when we get into the next Fast and the Furious. Do you really think that the Fast and the Furious bros are going to keep their mouth shut for 2 weeks like we did for Avengers?
Is there anything to spoil with Fast and
Sure,
Furious?
all sorts of crazy stunts, or if they kill someone. I mean, if you're someone who likes to go to a movie not knowing anything, it's tough.
So that's the spoiler sidetrack. I want to get back to the actual movie thing. While I'm old enough to not want to be consumed by the fact of going to a movie theater and in a gross area, as you called it, Chris, and I would concur with that. So I'm not going to put you out on that branch alone. But I find at home, like last night, I was watching something last night. I was on my reclining couch, which is just like the recliners that are in the movie theaters. I have a Primo Atmos sound system. I have a 65-inch 4K TV. I am set to watch this stuff at home. I don't need a bigger TV because I'm close enough so it takes up most of my view. And I'm fine with that. I can stop it. I can go to the bathroom. I can get whatever snacks. I think this is not for us. I think the question is there going to be people that just want to go out and be with other people and have a good time with other people? And largely, I think you're talking about the teenagers, the 20s, maybe people in the 30s that really need to get out and get out. We've seen that throughout this entire pandemic, that people don't like to be at home. They want to be out doing things with other people. So from that perspective, I don't necessarily know if movie theaters are going to collapse because there's going to be nobody that wants to go out to it. We're all older guys. We all have Primo home theater systems. Not everybody is as fortunate as us.
To be fair, though, depending on the movie, I'd rather go see it at theaters. Like, there's something about going like opening night to a Marvel movie with a bunch of your friends or a bunch of other people that are all super excited because we've been waiting for it forever, that you can feel, for lack of a better term, the electricity in the air as everyone's excited. There's those mumblings. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I can't believe. And theories getting thrown around. That is such a fun experience. I don't want to lose those kind of things, but I'm not sure that every movie can cause that to happen. And I think there is going to be some contraction of movie theaters.
Well, one of the things that it keeps going through my mind here is like that movie theaters as a business were hard to run before any of this. They because like everybody complains about the fact that movies are so expensive and how can they not? Well, the problem is that the theater company itself makes virtually nothing off of movies. They make very little off of movies themselves. They
for
make
a given window, correct?
Exactly, for a given window, right? So the problem is that's why you have all of this expensive popcorn and all these other things, right? Because it's a very hard business to run. That's why we have seen things like MoviePass try, because they've been trying to, try new things, but then that's failed as well. And so because it was so hard before, I think you bring up a good point, SP, that there are going to be some people who, like, maybe it's just the young demographic that wants to go. If all of a sudden the demographic of who was going is cut in half because now you got like a divide, you got a bunch of people who aren't prioritizing it at all because they don't care anymore because they've had a shift in mind. Is the remaining demographic enough to keep them in business? And is it bringing in enough money for the people making the movies? Because if all of a sudden you see any drop, like a significant drop with the people going, then they're not bringing as much to the box office. So that could be what also might have to force the issue, because back to the audio example, there was all sorts of people going, well, those MP3s sound like crap. They're way more compressed. They sound horrible. You should get the actual CD. It sounds 1,000 times better. I don't know why people would do the MP3. And they had the same thing. They all had an excuse of why MP3 sounded terrible. But the music industry had to adapt because enough people dropped off that it wasn't worth it anymore. And they had to start finding a different way. And so if we see this huge audience drop or this huge demand drop for movies, the people who are producing these movies are going to want to have that income somehow else.
Well, here's what's really going to drive a lot of this decision. Not necessarily us, the consumer, and not necessarily the theater chains. It's going to be the big studios and the actions that they take. And had we seen something like the Mulan release on Disney Plus sell gangbusters, or some of these other things that came out right around March because the movie was only in theaters for like a week and they all went like on sale or rental for $20 and sold gangbusters, maybe this model would change. But the fact is, nobody's really bought into the new model, except for a few people like, oh my God, I have to see this immediately. People still are thinking with the theater mindset. And if that continues, it's going to be tough to do. And it really comes down to, here's how we'd find out. If Disney decided to say, hey, we're going to put Black Widow out on digital early, $30, you buy it now. Or if Universal did that with the Fast and the Furious movie that's mostly done, or MGM with Bond, and there was a big return and a lot of people decided to buy it, then I think you'd see the model shift. But these studios don't want to do that because they make more money putting these out in movie theaters than they ever would on direct digital distribution, probably. So we're kind of in this holding pattern now, where it's between the theaters and the big studios, and us kind of stuck in the middle, being like, well, I'm not comfortable with this, and this isn't as good an experience, so I don't know what to do. And it's going to be very interesting as we go 6-9 months down the road to see how this shakes out, because by all accounts, the Regal and Cineworld theaters are not reopening in 2020. It is sometime in 2021. I didn't actually see an exact date, but I don't imagine it's going to be like January 1, 2021. I think we're talking summer if we're lucky.
Yeah. And that's what I meant, by the way, when I said movie companies. I don't know why studio didn't come to my mind. I can't think today. Studio was who I was referring to, because they're obviously the ones that want to make the money.
Chris, you mentioned movies that you'd want to see in the theater. And while I'm fine not seeing these in the theater, I wouldn't mind seeing it in the theater, given a better health crisis in the area. Wonder Woman, you didn't mention Wonder Woman. I would love to see that. Black Widow, yes, I'm a big Marvel guy. I have a Marvel podcast. I've seen all the Marvel movies. I'm just not excited to see Black Widow, but who knows? Maybe it'd be awesome on the screen. James Bond and Tenet, those are like the 4 big ones that I know of right now, but I know there's others. But I just wanted to throw a plug in there for Wonder Woman because everybody's waiting for it and it looks amazing.
Disney really wants to be able to get Black Widow out there so they can start talking about Phase 4 finally, because supposedly there are things in Black Widow that are supposed to set up the next phase, and also the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, supposedly. So there's a lot of things they can't talk about because they can't get the movie out.
I know. We're fortunate enough on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. that there's so much other content that we haven't watched yet that we can talk about. But if I had already seen all that stuff, I'd be twiddling my thumbs going, okay, Marvel, what's going on? What's going on?
All right, well, moving on to the next news point here. SP, we want to track NASA. How do we do that?
I saw this story and I have been keeping track of Perseverance for quite some time. Remember, that is the Martian probe that we launched a couple of months ago. It's on its way to Mars right now, and it launched on July 30th. Well, guess what? It now has a new interactive NASA web tracking app called Eyes on the Solar System, which you can follow the industrious spacecraft. That's what they're calling Percy, which that's the nickname for Perseverance, by the way, is Percy. On the interplanetary journey, the interactive NASA web application shows you where Percy is as the rover travels millions of miles over the next few months. Quote, Eyes on the Solar System visualizes the same trajectory data that the navigation team uses to plot Perseverance's course to Mars. If you want to follow along with us on our journey, that's the place to be. And that was by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory design and navigation manager of Perseverance. Now, using the app, you can track the remaining distance between Percy and Mars at any time. You can view Percy up close and compare the spacecraft's size to that of other NASA probes, such as Juno, Voyager 1, or the Parker Solar Probe. You can also fly in formation with Percy or check the relative velocity between Earth and Mars or other objects like the dwarf planet Pluto. Planet Pluto, guys. Planet Pluto, according to this statement. Now, after Percy lands, the rover will hunt for signs of habitable environments on Mars and search for signs of past microbial life. The rover is also designed to collect a series of samples that can be returned to Earth with a future mission and carries the Martian helicopter named Ingenuity, talking about drones, which will be the first rotary craft to fly on another planet.
I'm sorry, you lost me when you gave false information. Pluto planet, false. False.
Oh, dwarf planet is false. Yes.
Yeah. No, you said planet.
Yes.
It's not a planet.
Pluto is a planet.
It's not a planet. Just try to rile you up.
How much did Neil deGrasse Tyson pay you?
Someone's getting paid on this show.
Mhm, looks
time.
like it.
Okay, so the bottom line is, how do we track Suncast on this app?
Well, you go to tracksuncast.com. Please don't that be an actual website. I didn't even think about that.
Don't you put one of those Amazon Ring car trackers on his OBD2 port and track him that way?
Exactly. Shipped it up there last night. This is cool. I like that there's things like this happening because, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like
You're wrong.
Okay, thanks. Okay. I was going to compliment NASA, but that's cool. I'm wrong. No, I was going to say, I can't help but think that if it was 4 years ago, this might not have happened because the buzz, the community buzz around anything space was not as high as it is now. But with some of the recent SpaceX events, there's a lot of people really interested in this stuff again. I feel like this might be one of the fruits of that labor.
It's not just Percy, it's all the other probes as well that are active out there. I think this is a long time coming, that NASA should have had some tracking device that you could look at from on top or be able to spin the solar system around and see where all the probes are, all the active probes are out there right now, and maybe even some of the dead ones that we know the location of, so you don't, not to fly through there. Because I think the average public just doesn't understand how many probes that we've put out there as humans on this Earth over the course since Sputnik, which, by the way, as we're recording this, we're a couple of days away from the anniversary of Sputnik launching for the first time on October 4th, 1957. And since then, there's just been a bunch. The SP Space Symposium has done a bunch of them, not all of them. And there's just a lot of stuff going on in the solar system. Yes, we're focused on the big things like Juno, like the missions to Mars, but there's a lot of other science going on right now. And it's just great looking at the whole thing. I think this is a long time coming for NASA, and they should have done it a long time before now.
Smart idea. I'm excited for it. And I think it's a cool educational tool also.
Agreed. Well, lastly, in our extra, we just got a couple of things that we want to quickly talk about. SP, kick us off with another piece of space news.
Yeah, talking about space, we have the next launch of SpaceX's Dragon coming up. It was delayed to October 31st, 2020, but it wasn't anything to do with SpaceX. I got this out of a couple of articles from space.com, one by Mike Wall and one by Robert Perlman. SpaceX's first operational crewed mission to the International Space Station is delayed until Saturday, October 31st. The new target date will deconflict the Crew 1 launch from the upcoming Soyuz launch and landing operations. This additional time is needed to ensure closure of all open work, both on the ground and aboard the International Space Station ahead of Crew 1's arrival, unquote. And that was from NASA officials in a statement. By the way, the Soyuz launch is scheduled for October 14th and is going to send astronaut Kate Rubins with 2 cosmonauts up to the ISS. The Soyuz landing is scheduled for later in October and will bring NASA's Chris Cassidy, astronaut, and 2 Russian cosmonauts back to Earth. They have been living aboard the station since April. The delay will also give space station managers more time to investigate the International Space Station's small air leak. This is something that I don't usually talk about because by the time that we're talking about it, it's a moot point, but it is a pinpoint source and it is in the Russian control module that has come out since this article, by the way. So they have isolated the leak. It is not a danger to the International Space Station crew members. Also, by the way, talking about the launch of SpaceX, NASA astronaut Michael Hopkins, who is the commander of the Crew 1 mission, joined his 3 crewmates in revealing their ship's call sign during a NASA press briefing held on Tuesday, September 29th. Quote, "We're excited about the opportunity to name our vehicle. The Crew 1 Dragon capsule, number 207, will henceforth be known by the call sign Resilience, unquote. Hopkins said that during a press conference at Houston's Johnson Space Center. The name, explained by Hopkins, reflects the challenges that the current year has put forth, not just for his crew or the teams at spacecraft and NASA, but for the entire country and the world. I can't think of a better name for a capsule this year than Resilience.
That's awesome. And lastly, in our extra, I just wanted to quickly touch on this. I came across an article that Apple is suing a former recycling partner, Geep, G-E-E-P, Canada. And apparently, the reason for this lawsuit is that allegedly the company had been, they're phrasing it as stealing and reselling at least 103,000 iPhones, iPads, and watches that it was supposed to be disassembling. Essentially, what happened was Apple hired this company to disassemble and recycle this. This is something that Apple wants to do with the products that they have and that they think need to be ended and recycled properly. They don't want them resold with substandard parts and things like that. They want them disassembled to be properly recycled. Electronic waste is a huge issue in the world right now. So they hired them to recycle this. Well, they are suing because apparently they had done an audit and found that 18% of the devices were still accessing the internet. 18% of the audited devices that they had paid to have to be recycled. Now, the company of Geep Canada is claiming that apparently it was employees that were doing this, and they're saying they're not responsible for it, that it was employees, but there is Apple's position is basically it was higher ups that were involved in the company that were doing it. So a lot of speculation. It's all alleged. Who knows? You got to wait for the proper legal process and all of that there. But it was an interesting lawsuit that I thought was worth mention because, yeah, Apple tries to do the responsible thing, hires a company, and that company burns them and resells the product or something, or someone within the company does that allegedly.
I had no idea how in-depth the mob was in Canada, Stephen. You have enlightened me here that the criminal activity in Canada is just as bad as anywhere else in the world. I love that. I love this. So we have to get rid of these devices. So let's recycle them, all right? Like disassemble, Stephanie, to use a Johnny Five reference, right? But for these to still be accessing the web when they're supposed to be destroyed. That's interesting. Apple is keeping track of its devices, which we already know because of the stuff that happened around Apple stores, and they've been tracking the devices that were on display. So yeah, they will find you.
It makes sense from an Apple perspective, though, because if someone has a faulty iPhone that catches on fire, does something weird, and then Apple takes the blame, they then find out, oh, this is something that was supposed to be recycled 6 months ago, but somehow got sold. It doesn't matter. The press will still say Apple iPhone, whatever, catches on fire, and they'll take the black eye for it. I mean, sort of makes sense. I mean, and they are supposedly trying to become more and more green. They put a lot of effort into these phone and electronic recycling methods and things that are going on. Google's been doing similar things, saying, like, for instance, the new Chromecast is made out of all recycled materials or something to that effect. It's a big deal. Good on them for keeping an eye on it too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And by the way, just for clarification, the reason that we have so much of this happening is because we don't get the actual product sold to us. You know, it's so far delayed. We got to get them somehow. It's through this.
So, Stephen, when do you get your cut out of all the stuff you've sold?
No comment.
When do I get my cut out of all the stuff I funneled to you? I mean, never mind.
Never mind. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for checking out another episode of the Official Gonna Geek Show. Before we go, I'll just take a moment to plug and promote things. But first, I'm going to start us off this time and say you should go to GonnaGeekNetwork.com and welcome Adventures in Aurelia to the network. We have a new podcast on the network. If you want to check that out, it's GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Welcome aboard, Damien and crew. We greatly, greatly appreciate you being interested in the Gonna Geek Network. Damien is someone that we've had a lot of contact with through Better Podcasting, and then through that came over to, I think he watches this show as well, but for sure came to our Discord server, a very active member over there. And Damien, we're very happy that you decided to be part of the network. So welcome aboard.
Adventures in Aurelia is a podcast that is a tabletop role-playing game, and he records the sessions live and adds a lot of music and stuff. It's a very high-produced podcast now. He's going back and revising some older episodes that might not be as highly produced, but if you catch the newer stuff, it is definitely worth your listen. So come to the Discord at discord.com/GonnaGeek and say hi to Damien in his new channel.
GonnaGeek.com/Discord. GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
Sure, that one works too. That's the one that works over the other one. Yeah. Yes.
Is there anything, Chris, that you would like to plug or promote?
Just a friendly reminder, there is a bunch of live content on the network, so please feel free to come check out some of those other live shows. Head on over to geeks.live. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page and see a calendar of all of the upcoming live events.
Stargate Pioneer?
I am glad to be part of the Gonna Geek Network. It's good to be back. This was my first podcast back last week. I am still getting my feet underneath me, but we are having a blast over at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. going through all the older Netflix shows, and we only have 3 series left now. And after that, we're looking forward to the new Disney Plus series. And oh, by the way, I mean, I don't mean to promote something that's not part of the network whatsoever, but I'm really looking forward to The Mandalorian coming out in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I am too. I need that in my life right now. But for episode number 348 of the official GonnaGeek.com show, I'm Stephen John Drew saying yes, a true welcome to Adventures in Aurelia.
And I'm SP saying I'm actually playing Squadrons on the Xbox. Come find me there.
I'm Chris, and I don't have anything great to say, but thanks for joining us.
Wow,
that's great.
That's a first.
You just cut down our listeners saying that they're not great. They're great, Chris.
I didn't have anything great to say.
About our listeners?
No. Now this is a frame job.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of The Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.